So today I have good news and bad news. The good news is Demon Form Hexblast feels straight up just amazing on every level. For bossing, for map clear, just feels 10 out of 10. The bad news, she's literally a fucking demon and looks cool as shit, and I don't want to play anything besides her. But I guess that's a personal problem. Now I know that 3,150 spell damage looks like clickbait, but it's not. The reason that spell damage is so high is literally because Demon Form and its stacks. If you look at Demon Form, the two lines that matter the most are lose 0.5% of life per second per Demon Flame, and obviously the 18% we get per Demon Flame. So obviously you want to stay in Demon Form as long as possible, keep stacking, and for about 30 to 40 seconds, you can essentially destroy anything in the game. So how do we do this? How do you get your stacks so high? It's actually really simple. On a budget, all you need to do is just buy the cheapest Ghost Wraith and Ming's Hearts that you can afford. That's it. If you just put those on, that'll lower your HP significantly, and then you get life regen on your gear. Just with bad gear and capping your res, you should be able to already get to around 70 stacks, and that's more than enough to clear maps easily. Now before you ask, no, you cannot use Corpse Weight while in Demon Form. Trust me, it's the first thing I tried. It doesn't work. The other thing is that we are using Hexblast as our main skill. Technically, we're wearing the Ming's Heart because of the reduced maximum life, but the other line is obviously 30+% damage as extra chaos damage. So the easiest skill to use is just a chaos skill, and Hexblast just so happens to be the strongest chaos ability. Now normally I always say, hey, here's my disclaimer, blah blah blah, this build can't do this. Well, this build can do everything. Don't want to use Hexblast? You can use a ton of different skills. You want to focus more on mapping? She's the fastest base ascendancy in the game because her Demon Form is just dashing around the whole time. Want to kill bosses? She downed every boss in the game. The only thing I can say is that her gear is very specific, but we'll tackle that when we get there. For now, let's go over the skills. Now, once you get Demon Form, it actually is technically a skill, and as you can see, it's also a buff. So you can link it with stuff, and you have to. You need to link it with Second Wind and Ingenuity. These are mandatory because some maps have levers, and when you pull a lever, you exit Demon Form. Some maps, you have to pull 3 damn levers. So this just means Second Wind is obviously mandatory. The good news is that it doesn't affect your spirit reservation or anything. Obviously, it was just designed like this, I guess. Now, I'm going to explain the gear in a second, but for now, at the very least, you need to run Grim Feast. You do not need to run Clarity and Cannibalism with Grim Feast. These are just because of my gearing. Ideally, you can just run Grim Feast by itself. She has so much damage while mapping. You one-shot the mobs, you dash through all the spirits, you pick them all up, and you keep, just moving along. It feels great, it feels smooth. Honestly, like I said, I'm gonna have a hard time playing other stuff. Now for a main damage skill, we are gonna run Hexblast. Like I said, feel free to experiment with different stuff. Personally, I probably will try out some different spells, but mathematically, Hexblast is just too easy to pick up and just run it. If you don't know, for Hexblast to do any damage, it has to have a curse on the target, and that's where eventually we'll talk about Despair. But for now, Hexblast is linked with Controlled Destruction, Arcane Tempo, Chaos Mastery, Inspiration. Hexblast, I think, is the highest mana cost base gem in the entire game. It's insane. So you have a couple options. Your 6th link, when I'm mapping, I went with Arcane Surge. I'm missing mana on my gear, so I just run Arcane Surge, feels completely fine. For bossing, I run Concentrated Effect. Sometimes, depending on the boss, I would fix my tree up, give it some more mana, recharge, things like that. But at the end of the day, just run Conc Effect. If you're desperate for more AoE, you can put Magnified Effect in there, but personally, I just liked it in Blasphemy. Speaking of Blasphemy, obviously we're going to run Despair. Keep in mind this is 60 Spirit for Blasphemy. If you run Heightened Curse with it, you're going to lose more Spirit, so make sure your Spirit's good if you want to run this setup. And like I said, I run Magnified Effect on Blasphemy. Technically speaking, you want to run Dark Effigy and Contagion because of Withering Touch. Wither is very similar to PoE 1, it just means your chaos damage does more damage. The problem is, Dark Effigy is it's like the dumbest totem in the game. It only attacks stuff if it's damaged by a chaos damage over time debuff, which is exactly what Contagion is. The problem is when you're fighting a boss, you have to dash, cast Contagion, which means you're not doing damage, right? You put down the effigy, which means again that's a second cast, you're not doing damage. You're probably going to dodge again. It starts shooting out Wither, and then it dies in immediately one hit. So I don't know, I think it's kind of fucking useless. I don't really bother, but if you can figure out how to make it work, let me know. Regardless, it's linked with Ancestral Urgency, Withering Touch, Blind does work with it. And then for Contagion, I tried Persistence for more duration. Hinder, because, you know, for whatever reason, and then Unleash, but I never use these literally ever. Alright, so time for our gear. Now, keep in mind, before you make fun of me, my gear is kind of bad. Some of it's good, but most of it's pretty bad. When I made this gear, I was broke, and because of that, if I want to change something, I'd have to change all of it. And I don't want to do that. It already cleared the entire game, so I'm happy with where it is. Now, first off, obviously we want Ghost Wraith and Ming's Hearts. Like I said, we want to convert our HP into ES, and we also just want less HP. The less HP we have, right now I'm at 161, with our life recovery being 257 per second. So this is why I can stay in demon form and essentially just ignore it until about 170 so stacks. So if you don't know, if you corrupt a unique item, for example, this is supposed to be 50% life converter to ES. If it's corrupted, then that number gets, well, sometimes it goes lower, sometimes it goes higher, but in our case, we want it to be higher. Basically, we just want less HP. We want as little as health as possible. You don't want max life on any pieces of gear. That's obviously where the Ming's Heart comes in. So Ming's Heart, if you didn't know, you can quality this with Flesh Catalyst from Breach. And what that does is it takes that 20% reduced max life and turns it into 24. You can do that for both. I made these myself. The best thing you can do is turn that 24 into, I think it goes up to 27. I made one, I sold it because it didn't really do anything for me. I think at this point I hit diminishing returns. So your mileage may vary. I don't think you really need 27% basically. Now your next thought is probably, okay, so you're telling me we're wearing 3 uniques, dude. What the hell am I supposed to do with my res? And that's where I say, I thought the same thing. And then I was looking for jewels, because jewels have life regen rate on them, and we want to stack life regen, right? And then I stumbled across, you know, okay, 7% life regen, that's not a big deal. And then I came across this one, and I was like, huh? You can get res on jewels? And it turns out, yes, you can get res on jewels. You can also get regen with AoE. That's the best thing you can get, but it's like 25 chaos per. Not needed, but definitely a luxury purchase. Before we go over the tree, you can see I have a bunch of jewels, and most of these jewels have some form of resistance on it, whatever I needed. And yeah, that's how you cap your gear. I wish I knew that, you know, a couple days ago. My other characters would have been significantly easier to gear. So like I said, we need life regen. You can get life regen on your helmet, you can get life regen on your boots, your amulet, and your belt. You cannot on your gloves. So for gloves, you're gonna want tri-res. These gloves don't even have energy shield on them. I needed mana and I needed res, so I paid like 40 exalts for these. They suck, but they get the job done. And like I said, they cannot have maximum life. I can't stress that enough. You do not want HP on any pieces of gear. This makes gearing a little annoying because, well, 99% of people will only put something up for sale if it has fucking health on it. So, you know, just try to figure it out. But other than that, you're just looking for life regen and res on every single piece of gear. Life regen where you can get it. Obviously, we got unique, so we're limited on slots. Now, one thing I'll say about the amulet, and this is where your mileage will vary. Realistically, instead of that spirit roll, I want plus to spells. Instead of rarity, I want mana. Mana is a huge problem. Hexblast takes so much goddamn mana. I really hope that they fix this because it's unbelievable. But I have 875 mana. Realistically, I would like to have probably about 1100. I can't get that unless I get mana on my belt, mana on my amulet. Like I said, I have to fix all of my gear if I want to do that. So don't be like me. Try to get mana here if you can find a +1 to spells, but I've seen 2 for sale, way too expensive. Get some mana regen, fix your shit up, and you want to anoint Hell Heart. There is another option. I don't know if this is better. It's 20% life regeneration rate, but it's a bit more expensive, so I didn't bother. This is the cheapest option I've seen, so I just went with that. Aside from that, as you can see, I do not have a weapon or a shield. In my offhand, just for whatever reason, I have my old setup with just a generic wand and a shield. If I find myself, for some reason I misclick or whatever, at least I have a weapon that can do damage and, you know, a shield so I don't die. I run around in circles. This setup actually does kill mobs for the record, even without demon form. I can actually kill rares with this setup as well. Not that bad actually, but when you're in demon form, she disables both of your weapons. So if you didn't know, that's why you don't care about them. Now for our ascendancies, I did finally do my ascendance, late, but I got it done. Demon form. If you're starting this off, or if, for example, you're leveling this character or whatever the reason, you can take the 10 demon flame. This is completely fine until about like tier 8 maps, and at that point you really need to start pumping into normal demon form. 10 stacks is, it's good, but it loses its flavor pretty quickly. Next up, take Altered Flesh, go grab Baydat's Will and Baydat's Gaze. Even though technically these do give you HP, I think the reservation, I don't know why I said it like that, what the fuck's wrong with me? The reservation is counteracting this, but I don't know, you could try the dog and stuff. I don't think it's worth it, but you know, knock yourself out. So the tree looks like, as usual, I'll have a mobile link down below so you don't have to sit here and, you know, keep pausing, but basically we're getting the Jewel Sagas. Jewels for res. My mana was rough, so I did have to take Arcane Blossom. I really don't want to, because if you drop these points, you could go get recharge, you know, permanently. You could squeeze out a little bit more damage from the Void. You could grab these ES nodes, but this is what I had to do because, you know, my gear's kind of ass. The other thing I'll talk about is AoE. So when you're fighting a boss, for example, you don't need these nodes. I would drop these nodes if I was fighting a boss, maybe go get more mana regen, get ES recharge, maybe more damage, squeeze out some more energy shield, whatever you need to make the boss smoother. For mapping, I definitely take this. This is why I don't run Magnify, but if you wanted to run Magnify, you could just drop most of this, I think. Regardless, try different stuff out. Just experiment with stuff, fuck with stuff. It's not PoE 1. Nothing is set in stone, so do what you want to do, try out what you want to try, be better than me and make the build better. And then come back and tell me how you made it better so I can go kill bosses quicker, because there's definitely a skill issue for me with bosses, and it's definitely not the build. Now, welcome to the end. This is where I'll talk about potential skills and theories and things I tested and didn't test if you want to really get into the nitty gritty. So I tested Flame Blast with Ignite. It felt like complete shit. I think Ignite is bad. I think Crit Flame Blast has potential. The other potential option is getting a Fire Flower. I'm not going to explain how that build works. You can just look it up if you want to. I think that has potential with Demon Form because the spell damage and stacking with the Comet, but we'll see. I'll probably just buy the amulet. If it doesn't work, I'll just resell it. They are buffing chaos damage over time stuff in a future patch. That patch is not happening yet, so the Corpse Wade build still works. They didn't say they were going to nerf Corpse Wade, so I might try to do a like pseudo Demon Form, human form type thing, like stay in human form to clear like the breaches and then switch to Demon Form to kill the bosses. I'm not sure, but we'll see. I might try it out. Now, in the last video, I did mention that I had a theory that I was going to try, so it was not actually this. This was plan B. My original plan was I wanted to do a mix. I wanted to wear 2 Ming's Hearts and a Covenant, and then maybe a Soul Tether. The idea was to essentially use the Covenant to leech, use the Soul Tether to excess leech. I was going to try to do like the old PoE 1 tech you'd do on a, like it was a duelist, but it didn't work. It didn't work. All right, that's it. That's all I got off the top of my head. Probably missed something, but that's future me's problem. Have a good one. I'll catch you later.